John Morant goes nuclear in Brooklyn. Trae Young goes something beyond nuclear, but can't get the win in Portland. Plus, the Bucks lost a division game. This is Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On NBA, your daily coverage of everything NBA here on the Locked On Network, your team every day. Thanks for making this part of your day and making us your first listen each and every day. We're free and we're available on all platforms. My name is Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network. I'm the host of Locked On Nuggets along with Adam Mares. I am the Nuggets insider for 104.3 The Fan in Denver, and I make a mean soup. He's Tony East. He's a writer for Forbes. He does many things. He is the host of Locked On Pacers. We are bringing you Monday night's extravaganza from the NBA, and we had, Tony, a lot of stuff happened on Monday.
10 games, 3 guys over 40 points tonight, 4 guys over 40 points tonight. Big NBA night, lots of fun stuff, and some unfortunate injuries. It was really fun to break it down, and there were 2 40-point games in one matchup tonight.
Which one was it, Tony?
The unsurprising yet surprising Blazers-Hawks game, where I, as someone who covered Nate McMillan for many years, cannot figure out the Hawks, who were 25th in defense entering this game. They just befuddle me with their lack of defense all season long. They were much better on that end of the floor last year. Trae had 56, no Dame, no CJ. They lose to the Blazers. I mean, that makes no sense when you say it all together. But Anthony Simons has 43, makes 9 threes, completely dominates in the starting 5 for Portland. Norm Powell has 26. They had 4 starters over 20, but when Simon shoots like that, he just can completely control the game, combined it with 7 assists. This game was wild. Shots were coming in from the most random places and going in. 136-131 final. If the Hawks can't win this game, I don't know what to make of them after last year. I mean, they have got to be better on defense if they want to recapture last year's form.
I went big on this team in preseason. I was like hyping them. I was like, I think this is the team that makes the leap, blah, 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 blah. And yeah, like their defense absolutely looks like it was just a fluke couple of months where they overperformed defensively. Like they've just been so bad defensively. And like some of it's not surprising because if you dig into the numbers on Capella the last couple of years, he hasn't really been able to be effective. They're without DeAndre Hunter, which I think is a big deal. Like I will point out that even though the Blazers were obviously shorthanded in this one, the Hawks were also without not only Hunter, but Bogdanovich and Cam Reddish and John Collins. Like this was very much like a shell of the Hawks, but boy, this is just such a bad loss anyway. At this point, I don't think you can expect the Hawks to find whatever, like it's a little bit late for them to find the groove that they're going to need to make the kind of run that they did last year.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, Trae, they dominated his minutes. He played 37 and a half minutes. They won those minutes by 10, and they just get nothing from anybody else. And they had last year, they were this team that was sharing the ball, and Bogdanovich was great. And look, don't get me wrong, a lot of these guys have been good this year, and you mentioned it. They had a lot of guys out. But if you get 37 and a half minutes from Trae and do very well in those minutes, for a team that spent a lot of money last year to have a lot of balance, you got to win those other 10 minutes. They got smoked in them. Lou Williams was not good at backup point guard. We've gone too long on the Hawks who lost. Anthony Simons was excellent. And for a Portland team that has massively underwhelmed this year, they need him to be like this way more so they can have at least some kind of bridge from whatever the hell is going on right now to whatever the next era of Portland is. And he's had a few of these games. He had one against the Pacers last year, so I remember it fondly. But he's had a few of these games in his career. I continue to be impressed with him. And credit to the Blazers for getting this win without their 2 best players.
9 of 16 from 3 for Anthony Simons. Just did not see that coming. You know who's actually been really good too and was good in this game? Nasir Little. Nasir Little quietly having a really good season, had a really good game here. So Good win for Portland, which they need any of them that they can find. So good on them for finding that one. I think that the big story of the night, just in terms of from a game perspective, if you look at the slate and you go like, what's the kind of marquee game? There were two. And one of them we'll get to in the second segment. But the other one was the Memphis Grizzlies, the surprising Memphis Grizzlies taking on the Brooklyn Nets. Nets still one of the tied for the best record in the East going into the night. Obviously, like a favorite in this game. And Memphis worked them. Specifically, if you were putting together an outside, like, hey, John Morant belongs on your MVP ballot somewhere, even if it's low, this is one of the games that you would want to lead with because Ja absolutely just destroyed the Nets in this game, especially in the third quarter. Ja finishes with 36 points, 8 assists, 6 boards, just 3 turnovers, 14 of 22 shooting, 2 of 4 from 3, 6 of 10 from the line, and a plus 24. They couldn't do anything with him. He had 18 in the third quarter alone, Tony. Just a massive dunk, just a shred through the heavens, rain down hellfire dunk that kind of encapsulated the night. It wasn't just him. Desmond Bane goes for 29 on 12 of 23 shooting, 5 of 11 from 3. As Bane continues to make a most improved player, I think, case. 8 boards also for Bane. They were on the boards as well. Just a really strong night. Like, they got nothing from Jaren Jackson Jr., who only had 5 points and just played some defense and was just kind of around. They got 6 points from Steven Adams. They did get 16 from Brandon Clark, who was really good. But, Tony, I've been worried about this Nets defense all year. This has been my recurring thing is I do not believe in this defense. A lot of their metrics indicate that they are worse than what their numbers show. And this was a good example of how certain teams, especially ones that can attack the rim relentlessly, can get what they want. And boy, the Grizzlies just took it to them.
Yeah, for the Nets, like with Kyrie out for 2 more days, not too much longer, for home games for the rest of the year, they really need Patty Mills to be like a somewhat credible third option on offense, and he missed every shot he took in this game. They got nothing from him, so they're playing a lot of transition D when that happens, and their defense isn't good anyway, so they got smoked in that way. And yeah, the Grizzlies are just awesome. They're just awesome. Like 5 wins in a row, very firmly 4th in the West. They're no longer like, wow, the Grizzlies are 4th in the West. Like, they are 4.5 games ahead of 5th now, like clearly stranglehold 4th place in the West, top 10 in the NBA in net rating, winning all the time. Ja looks awesome. They're finally finding some fit with other guys like Bane, you said, having 29 tonight, and him adding some shot fake off the dribble game has really evolved stuff for them, especially when they get 11 total points from their other 3 starters and they can still win. I mean, they've really found a groove with the team they have. Ja's fit back in after missing a lot of time. So, yes, the Nets defense certainly porous, especially when they have 1.5 effective offensive players basically for the entire game. But all the credit to the Grizzlies, who are very clearly actually good now and not just like this surprising upstart team.
Interesting one here. They now have the most wins versus teams that are 500 or better in the league. They have 14 wins versus teams that are 500 or better. They are 14-7 on the season versus those teams. Their problem, they're only 10-7 versus teams under 500. Got to clean it up versus the bad teams, Grizz. That's how you're going to be able to hold on. It's going to be interesting to see if they can win the division, if they can get a top 4 seed, if they can make noise in the playoffs. But I will say, like, look, they were on pace to make the playoffs, and then the shutdown happened in 2020. They lost in the play-in tournament. They made the play-in tournament last year. They won the play-in tournament to make the 8th seed. They get bounced in the first round. So, like, they're on track to just kind of improve year after year after year. And I continue to be impressed with this team, with the coaching, with the roster. Desmond Bane's amazing. They did this despite missing Dillon Brooks and DeAnthony Melton. Like, they were short guys too because they've got COVID issues. Brooklyn really only without Kyrie, Joe, and Aldridge, who was out with an injury. But the Grizzlies just coming in there and smacked them. Pretty impressive. Before we go to break, I want to tell you real quickly about one more game, and that is, I got to say, this is a really entertaining game tonight. A Southeastern Division battle between the Charlotte Hornets and the Washington Wizards. And the Wizards hold on for a 124-121 victory. Terry Rozier had a shot to get this thing back within a range and missed an open three, although he had a fantastic game, hit a number of big shots. Rozier with 25 points on 9 of 17 shooting, 5 of 9 from 3. He kept them in it in this game on what was, a quieter night for their offense. They did get 23 from Miles Bridges and 27 from Gordon Hayward. For the Wizards, it was Kyle Kuzma. 36 points on 13 of 26 shooting, 6 of 11 from 3. He and Rozier, Tony just went back and forth, and I never thought I would be super entertained by a Terry Rozier versus Kyle Kuzma matchup, but it was absolutely riveting. Really fun game. Wizards get a much needed victory. By the way, this was an important one to avoid the Hornets clinching the season series, which if these two teams wind up battling for a play-in spot or playoff seeding or whatever else, that could wind up mattering down the line. This is also, I will say, the first game this season where I've really watched Bradley Beal and been like, oh, Brad's back. Like Brad showed up tonight. He hasn't had what I thought was a crazy impressive year. He was phenomenal in this game.
That was one of my takeaways for the Wizards. Unleash Point Beal. I get it. Dinwiddie, you signed him to be a point guard. You got to play him. He's good. But Bradley Beal might just be better at point guard. He can clearly control the game, and when he is emphasizing passing a little more and not just trying to shove it down your throat and adding some balance to the Wizards, he didn't even lead the team in shots tonight. Look how good they look offensively. Both of these teams' defenses stink, so obviously you got to have caveats abound for any stat line in this game. But I think Point Beal might be a thing that the Wizards might need to look at a little harder, and it's tough given the rest of the players on their team, especially Dinwiddie, like I said already, but clearly something that works. And for Kuzma, we're a DeRozan missed buzzer beater away from consecutive huge Kuzma nights for the Wizards. I mean, he could be a story of the league. He's been stepping up huge for them. Love the Hornets. They're super fun to watch. Rozier is fantastic. They might make the playoffs. I will never take them seriously unless their defense becomes something else or they acquire someone serious on defense. I just can't with them. I think I've told you this on Locked On NBA before, Matt, but Kelly Oubre is on my all do not like watching team. And just stuff that happens when he's in the game that doesn't happen when he's out of the game is just gross for them. And he was minus 17 tonight in 12 and a half minutes. It's weird. He's not a bad player. I don't like watching him, and I haven't on many teams he's on. So they're good. They might be fine, but their defense really stinks. And when you go against Point Beal and Kuzma playing like this, you're not going to win.
Fun subplot to watch with the Wizards is Davis Bertans hit some huge shots tonight. Bertans goes 4 of 7 from 3-point range. Absolutely phenomenal shooting and also just a lot of sneering at him from his own teammates for various missed assignments on defense. Pretty fun to watch. It was like every other possession was like, yeah, Davis. And then the next one was like, God, what are you doing? It was very amusing. Love watching this Wizards team. They're very entertaining on a league pass basis. Let's take a break. We'll come back and we'll hit some of the other games, including we'll get into can the Bulls pull off another one, and in a battle between Golden State and Miami, who comes out ahead. And oh boy, the Bucks lost the division game. Again, I can't believe this. We'll talk about that after the break when we come back on Locked On NBA. But first, I need to tell you about TrueBill. You know why free trials renew without your consent? I found 4 of them the other day that I was still paying for using TrueBill, and I should not be paying for them because I haven't used them in forever. It's a business scam out to get you. Don't let greedy corporations pocket your money. Download TrueBill to take control of your subscriptions. TrueBill is the new app that helps you identify and stop paying for subscriptions you don't need, want, or just simply forgot about, like I did. On average, people save up to $720 a year with TrueBill. Because companies make subscriptions hard to cancel, TrueBill makes it incredibly simple. Just link your accounts and TrueBill will cancel your unwanted subscriptions in one tap. Your TrueBill concierge is there when you need them to cancel unwanted subscriptions so you don't have to. They've got over 2 million users and help save them over $100 million. Don't fall for subscription scams. Start canceling today at truebill.com/lockedonnba. Go right now. Truebill.com/lockedonnba. It could save you thousands a year. Truebill.com/lockedonnba. We'll be right back on Locked On NBA. Back here on Locked On NBA. Thanks for making us part of your day. Tony East and Matt Moore taking you through Monday's slate in the NBA. I want to thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. Now, you got to make sure that your second listen is Locked On Now, because it's amazing. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Now podcast, nightly recaps of every NBA game with analysis from our local experts. Listen to Locked On Now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or watch it on the Locked On NBA YouTube channel. Okay, Tony, let's keep rolling here. Let's go to Golden State. They take on the Miami Heat tonight. Big favorites. Jimmy Butler played, and the Warriors were still big favorites in this game. No Bam Adebayo, no Dedmon, all these type of guys. Klay Thompson's going to be coming back this weekend, by the way. That's going to be a big story next week. Interesting game out there between the Heat and the Warriors, I thought.
Fascinating game. Fascinating. Kyle Guy was hitting shots from everywhere. PJ Tucker hit over half his threes. Kyle Lowry played a solid point guard game. Jimmy Butler hit half his shots. All these things make you think the Heat played well. Steph didn't score for the first 17 minutes. And the Warriors were winning at halftime because they got contributions from everyone up and down the roster. This was like the pinnacle Draymond Green game. He had 0 points and 10 assists at halftime. His defense was everywhere. It's so fun to watch the Warriors, for me at least, when Draymond is playing like this specifically. He finished with only 5 points, but 8 rebounds and 13 assists. Huge for them. And Wiggins continues to have this magical 3-and-D campaign for this Warriors team. They were just a delight. Jordan Poole doing his thing with 32. Gary Payton hitting over half his shots for 14. Wiggins was good. Draymond was good. Looney was good. Otto Porter was good. Bielitsa was good. They didn't even need Steph to be good, and they still beat the Heat. It was a really fun watch.
The Steph thing, I think, is kind of so. I will actually here's a take. Let's get a little bit.
Takes.
Let's get a little takey here. This is the kind of game that if you're going to make an argument against Steph Curry for MVP, this is the kind of game that you want to point to. So Steph on the season is actually shooting 43%. Tim Kawakami over at The Athletic noted that. He's shooting 40% from three, which, for most mortals that's a really good number. But for Steph, it's actually the lowest in some time for him because, he's Steph Curry and he's the greatest shooter of all time. This is his lowest field goal percentage so far for a season in his career. He's never shot worse than 46%, which was his rookie season. I'm sorry, 45% in 2013. He's at 40% from three. He played 5 games in 2020 and had made only 25% of his threes. So that's there. But outside of that shortened season, in any season where he's played more than 5 games, this is the lowest 3-point percentage of his career. His assists aren't necessarily up. The scoring's not particularly notable, especially compared to last year. And yet the Warriors are cruising because Jordan Poole is playing so great, and Andrew Wiggins, who they've tried to push for All-Star. Good luck with that. Draymond's obviously been amazing. Gary Payton II has been incredible for them. He made so many great cuts and just big plays tonight. This Warriors team is really great. So I kind of got to ask, if Steph's not dominating the way that you would expect statistically, how much of his MVP thing is going to probably fall apart once voters start looking kind of underneath the hood, unless he makes a really big leap? Because part of it, I honestly think, is this Warriors team is so good that you don't look at it and go well, he's really important. They're he can have an okay game and they still win comfortably versus a really good team in the East.
He was almost bad tonight. 3 for 17 is bad. Like that. 10 assists, still a driver, still has all the gravity in the world, and they're going to do awesome in his minutes. But his touches tonight were just not good, and they still won. But this was it's really basketball dorky to love Draymond games, but when he is everywhere and passing and actually hitting some shots, no one plays like him.
He was hitting those sequences where he makes a big he had 4 blocks, makes a massive block on one end, runs, gets the ball, makes a brilliant pass, goes back on the other end, helps get a steal, clapping, hyping up the it's sequence after sequence. The Warriors are the most explosive team in the league, and as much as Curry is important for that, and he's the most important reason for that, Draymond is vital to it because his ability to just hit you with these runs where he senses that you're reeling, and it's really impressive. His basketball, it's not even it goes beyond IQ. It's his basketball omnipresence is just incredible at all times.
I have some Heat notes. One is Kyle Guy, who spent 2 years with the Kings organization, is with them on a 10-day hardship, doing some okay stuff. Looked pretty good. I may remain convinced that Eric Spoelstra has some secret potion he can give guys the second they sign with the Heat to turn them into something else. He looked pretty good too. I love me some Omer Yurtseven. That dude can rebound and jump and do stuff around the basket. I think he's going to stick in the NBA for quite a bit. And 3, a note to watch out for. Jimmy Butler drives with his left hand and just falls over in the middle of the third quarter, no contact. Heat listed as an ankle injury, but one of those no contact ones. Jimmy's been made of kind of glass this year, so maybe it's not something to be too scared of, but non-contact stuff always makes me kind of weary. So keep an eye on Jimmy Butler's injury status.
I did not catch the Bulls game. Did you?
I did, and I have some gripes with the Orlando Magic, Matt Moore, because the Orlando Magic forgot that against the Bulls you were supposed to be winning by 1 or 2 with 15 seconds left, and then lose to DeRozan in magical fashion, and they almost made it happen. They only lost by 4. They catted as close as 1 or 2 late as the Bulls just decided to miss free throws. DeRozan himself missing some free throws and coming back onto the court post-game to get up more. Very rare to see DeRozan stink it up from the free throw line. But the Bulls are just, they're a machine right now, and they keep doing it with these crazy games where under half their makes are assisted. They just have so many good play finishers and shot makers that don't need to be set up or don't need a play call to be effective. And that's a really hard team to stop. And they continue to do this. DeRozan, despite not hitting a buzzer beater this time, still had 29 points and was ridiculous. Levine was ridiculous. And in my notes here, let's give some shout outs to Kobe White, who's been playing fantastic recently on both ends for the Bulls. 7 of 11 in this game, 17 points. He's been really good for the better part of almost 3 weeks now, since he's got fully recovered and reintegrated with this team. And they needed one other guy really to have that force, and they've gotten it from Kobe White. So a lot of credit to the Bulls. No credit to the Magic for not giving me any DeMar Magic, although I do love me some Wendell Carter, Franz Wagner front court partnerships. But yeah, the Bulls didn't even play that well, and they still won because the Magic kind of stink. But yeah, the Bulls are just very fun, and they have a very unique style that continues to work for them.
27 for Levine, 29 for DeRozan, 13 for Vooch. That's been their model as of late. Like they start off the season, they were getting contributions from everybody. And because they've had so many COVID and injuries, they're just basically now like, nope, we got 3 guys, we got 3 all-stars, and they're going to do all the work. And then everybody's also just going to play defense. And that's a pretty good model, honestly, considering like what they've had to kind of roll out there, because Caruso's still out, Javonte Green's still out, Tony Bradley's still out. Like they needed guys in order to step up and provide them with something, and they have, and they just keep kind of winning and finding their way. Lonzo Ball back on the court, obviously not himself, 1 of 8, his first game back from COVID. So that's something to keep an eye on. I thought Io's played well as of late, but he seems to be sliding a little bit. Wonder if he's hitting a little bit of a rookie wall. For the Magic, yeah, Wagner, I gotta tell you, Wagner is amazing to me because nobody looked worse to me at Summer League than Franz Wagner. Like I immediately was just like, well, that pick's a bust. Like that one's out. And he just turns out that he's one of those guys that needs to be playing organized basketball because he has been terrific. He has been so underrated. Here's what's weird about the Magic. They have a bunch of guys who I think are having good individual seasons as they have the second worst record in the league. It's very strange to me.
It is.
Because if you ask me, like, how's Franz Wagner been? Oh, amazing. He's been really good. He's shown really good things. What about Wendell Carter Jr.? Oh, awesome. Like I've never been higher on WCJ than I am right now. 21-10 for him tonight. Like all these guys. And yet you look at it and it's just like and like, oh, what happened? Oh, they lost by double digits, or they just lost again. They lost their 9th of in 10th games or whatever. It's a very strange season for me with the Magic where I'm like, yeah, they're playing pretty well. Did they win? Oh no. Not at all.
No way. Yeah, Franz Wagner needs to inherit the slow-mo nickname from Kyle Anderson because he is slower than Kyle Anderson, but still somehow very effective player. And I'm gonna pull a Matt Moore line out of my lexicon right now. Small subplot from this game. Quietly very good his last 8 before this one. Gary Harris at 18.6 points per game, 40% from 3, 48% from the field. And tonight as a starter, 19 points, hit half his threes. A Gary Harris resurgence could be nice for the Magic or some contending team later this season.
Yeah. Let's be real clear on this. I don't think it's a coincidence that Gary is improving as the deadline gets closer. I think there's probably a 1-to-1 relationship between how hard Gary Harris is playing and how close the trade deadline is. And if he's still in Orlando past the trade deadline, suddenly that good play will probably drift.
We'll taper off a little bit. Yeah.
All right, so I just got to go over this because I've mentioned it twice. Nobody thinks about nobody thinks about divisions except me. The running joke in the NBA is like, I don't even know what division that's in, which I think is weird because they wind up mattering more than you think. You play these teams more than anybody else. There's a whole bunch of reasons why these things actually matter. but more specifically, I just got to tell you something very, very crazy happened tonight. Mike Budenholzer versus division teams in Milwaukee is 35-13-1 straight up, or against the spread. Straight up, he's won something like 85% of all of his division games with the Milwaukee Bucks. They don't lose to division teams. It doesn't happen. Like, as a double-digit favorite, they've covered 17 of 24 times. Not only did they not cover versus the Pistons, Tony, but the Bucks lost to Detroit?
It's pretty befuddling. Every 50-50 ball, Detroit won. They were the young team diving all over the floor in this game. It's like, if you're one of those old heads who's got all your isms and thoughts about soft NBA players, this was your like, yeah, the Pistons, rah, rah, rah. Like, that's what you want to see. But really, Shea, who averaging 24 per game in his 8 prior to this one, continues his heater with 34. Josh Jackson has his 6th game in double digits all season with 24 off the bench. Cade was excellent down the stretch of this game, and the Pistons found ways to score against the normally good Bucks defense that has dominated the Central Division. I've seen it many times myself up close and personal, and Chris Middleton was not very good, so Giannis and Drew did their thing, and no one else on the Bucks could do literally anything. I think everybody else on the team shot below 50% who took a reasonable volume of shots. So credit to the Pistons for being the scrappy team, but the Bucks did not look good at all.
They won the starter minutes. If you told me like the Detroit knocked off Milwaukee, I would have been like, oh, so like the Pistons like bench went wild and somebody had like a crazy game that nobody was expecting, and it was probably like an ugly affair, and both teams scored under 100. Like, that's how I would envision it. And instead, it was like, no, the Pistons won the starters minute and dropped 115 on Milwaukee. I guess Saddiq Bey is like, I like the way that he was playing early in the season, but his shot wasn't falling, as it was for none of the Pistons. That they had one of the worst field goal percentages in history for much of the first half of the year. But I guess Saddiq Bey is like a thing now. Like, this is a thing. Like, Saddiq Bey is really kind of doing a lot of the scoring. He's become that secondary scorer to Cade that they've been looking for.
He's been quite good and making Killian Hayes not quite the piece that Detroit needs him to be, because he doesn't have the ball as much. But yeah, he's good, and he's got some grit shooting his threes. He's not afraid of anything, and that can really sometimes, like you said earlier in the season, sometimes that can be a negative, especially on a young team. But there's nights like tonight where you're like, wow, this kid is fearless and can lead this team to places.
I will also say, I think much of this has to do with the fact that in the last 5 games, the Pistons have played Luke Garza more, and I think that's really the answer to everything. It's just play. I love Luke Garza. I don't know why. I have a disease. I have a fever, and the only prescription is more Luke Garza.
Oh boy.
Let's take a break. We'll come back, and we'll wrap up the rest of the games from Monday on Locked On NBA. Back here on Locked On NBA. Thanks for making this part of your day and make it as your first listen each and every day. Make your second listen Locked On Bets with your boy Q and Lee Sterling, giving you the best bets every single day. Check it out, Locked On Bets, wherever you get podcasts. Now, more alongside Tony East, wrapping up here. Let's breeze through the blowout games. These games were not competitive on Monday night, but still lots of stuff to talk about, including okay, I got one here for you, Tony. I think the Houston Rockets are the worst team in the league, and I do not take any win over them seriously.
The band hammer coming out for them. 2 suspensions right before the game starts. No Kevin Porter, no Christian Wood, and no interest from a Tony East, who is supposed to be the one watching this game amongst our duo. I promise I did watch some of it, but yeah, without those 2 guys, I agree with you. Like, a lot of the Rockets have 10 wins, but I think like 6 of them are against like crap other teams they played.
Okay, it was like OKC, Magic, garbage, and then people missing players. That's how
they won them. Like they had a really nice stretch. I don't want to totally belittle it, but they definitely are not as good as their record suggests. And when your leading scorer is Garrison Matthews, I mean, that kind of tells the story of the Rockets in this game. They're a young team. They're going to be better in the future. Jalen Green had a rookie game where he couldn't hit a shot and had 0 assists. Like, it's who the Rockets are going to be, especially if they don't have their best player and a guy who's been playing point guard for them a lot of the season. And on the Sixers side, this is the kind of game Joel Embiid just loves, where he is so obviously the best player and the other team does not have any answer for him. He had 31, 15, and 10 for a triple-double. And Furkan Korkmaz was the second best player in this game with 24 points and not hitting a bunch of threes to do it. It was very rare to see Korkmaz get to the line 5 times. So credit to him, credit to the Sixers for rolling. But it was a blowout because the Rockets stink and didn't have 2 good players.
Sixers fans were stressing because Tobias Harris didn't have a good game, and I just kept being like, guys, it's the Rockets, you're fine. And then, like, meanwhile, everyone else is like, look at what Joel Embiid did. Like, he grabs the rebound and goes to the other end and pivots and fades away. I'm like, yeah, he can do that because he's facing the Rockets. Like, like Joel Embiid is one of the top 10 most impactful players in this league. He's one of the best players in the league. But, like, just as it was with LeBron, like, I just watched Facu Campazzo have a career game versus the Houston Rockets. That's a good indicator of where we're at with this team. Let me ask you something. So Christian Wood did not have the best reputation coming out of Detroit, but I thought he was really good last year. I thought he was good this year. He brings a lot to the table. KPJ brings even more concerns to the table. Like, I'm not surprised at all that these 2 guys are having issues in Houston. Do you think that these disciplinary problems are going to cause issues if the team decides to try and move on because they have other options, including Alperen Şengün, who they want to give more minutes to?
They've got to play Şengün either way more, honestly, but I don't know is my answer because, I mean, the fact that there's history of this makes me think that the answer should be yes, but at the same token, like, it seems like trading Wood was a logical step for a team in their situation and anyway, so maybe it won't matter in 20 days, 30 days, whatever the trade deadline is from now. KPJ, they would certainly like to build around. I forget which outlet reported. I want to say Houston Chronicle, but I don't want to be wrong here, saying that he was apologetic after leaving the arena. You know, perhaps that he can step right past it, and they have to suspend him. They can't just let that slide. I think we'll find out way more to answer your question in the next 2 days, but I think it's a little easier with KPJ and a little tougher with Wood, just given their situations with the team.
The Utah Jazz struggled with the Pelicans for about a half. They struggled a little bit in this game, but eventually they pull away, and the Jazz get yet another win. Took care of business. They have been a little bit shaky this season whenever they were big favorites, but they now have won, I believe, 6 straight versus when they were double-digit favorites. Rudy Gobert with 10 points, 17 rebounds. Bogdanovich with 21. Donovan Mitchell with 29 points, 11 of 19 shooting, 5 of 9 from 3. Mike Conley with 22. Afterward, Mitchell had an interesting quote that basically he was asked about the shooting and how it kind of got unlocked. He said, sometimes the read is just shoot it, man. Just letting it fly is basically what he said. I continue to be very intrigued by the post-game comments from this Utah Jazz team, because to me, there's like this lingering sentiment of half of the team thinks that they've got to change things up and play a little bit more, how can I put this, hooper ball if they want to go further in the playoffs. And the other half is like, when we trust our system, we're dominant. Just trust the system. And that tension between the two still seems to kind of be there. But it didn't really matter because the Pelicans, even though they've been better lately, are not good. Herb Jones was really good in this game on both ends and got a lot of credit from Donovan Mitchell for his defense. Herb Jones is going to be a good player in this league. Brandon Ingram had a really rough night. The Jazz really clamped down on him. They sent multiple defenders. They showed at him. They switched when they needed to, and he wasn't able to beat the switch. 3 of 18 for Brandon Ingram. 10 points on 18 shots for Ingram. Did have 7 assists, but that was rough. Valanciunas had a good night with 25 points, but wasn't able to get the stops because he has to play drop. If you have to play drop versus this Jazz team, you're toast. It's over. There's no hope for you. Josh Hart had 15, but the Pelicans just continue to not have nearly enough as they wait for Zion to come back and I guess make a dramatic return to ruin their draft stock. I don't know what the point is at this point, but sure.
Yeah, the Pels, 13 for 45 from their 3 scoring-ish ball handlers in Ingram, Graham, and Alexander Walker tonight. That just is not going to cut it. I don't care who you're playing. Just so happened they played a very good team in Utah who didn't even play that well and walked all over them. And look, this is not real analysis. I'll even admit this ahead. But Utah is just, it's not all clicking the gears for me. It never is. And even when I'm the highest on them, like in years past, I always felt like Jazz fans were a little too rah. But even this year when I'm like, okay, I get why the Jazz are really good, it feels like people who really cover the Jazz kind of have less faith in the Jazz this year. It's not all clicking in ways that it sometimes does with these really good teams. They're clearly good. Like they win on nights that they suck, like tonight, and they have good pieces that fit and do the Quinn Snyder stuff. What did Mike Conley say? You got to have a PhD to play for the Jazz. Like, what they do is complicated and it's good and it works. And for some reason, it will just never mesh for me, even though I know very well that they could be a conference finals or a finals team if it all clicks in the playoffs. But it never has for me. And I can't believe I'm saying this after they win, but I very rarely get to talk about the Jazz. So time to air these thoughts out, I suppose.
No, I think you're right here. I think this is the problem, is that even when they do this, it's just like, yeah, we'd be another, like, okay, great. Now, this is honestly one of the problems when you have a year like last year where you were so dominant, because like they were proud of their accomplishment last year and they felt like they were there, and they honestly felt like that in the playoffs. Like they continue to feel that if their guards were not hurt, they are beating the Clippers and going to the conference finals, and who knows. Now, I would say, one, the Clippers were without Kawhi Leonard, and I don't care how banged up you were. You had your guys, and they didn't have Kawhi, so you could stop talking about injuries right now. But two, I also think if you go and face the Suns are probably smashing you because they can switch and you cannot, and that continues to be a real problem for them. It's weird because the Jazz, I think, are trying to find the problem I find is that I feel like they're halfway there. They're trying just enough stuff to try and find different ways to play that it's annoying that the guys that are very dependent on the system, and the system guys are succeeding enough just by doing the same system stuff. But there is this kind of lingering, like, okay, great. We can get this win over the Pelicans by just doing our thing and getting them in rotation and clocking them. But we know how the story ends. And that is the problem with when you're in the spot. You can't fix anything until the playoffs. You can't do anything. You just got to wait and hope that it doesn't end up the same way. And yeah, I would agree that it's been a weird season for them. And you're right. The coverage out of Salt Lake has indicated that it's not that things are bad. It's just not as good as you would expect given their record and point differential.
And I'll bring this full circle with a big take on the Jazz. If the Jazz had Herb Jones, they might be my title favorite.
Oh, I like that. That's a great take. That's a really good take. I like that one. I like the Minnesota Timberwolves tonight because I like the Wolves pretty much every night. I'm a big believer in this team, and they get it done versus the Clippers. Look, I'm just going to simplify this. I could do a whole thing here. The Wolves were still shorthanded with COVID problems. No Karl Anthony Towns, no D'Angelo Russell, but Anthony Edwards was back and scored 28 points. Let me make this real simple. The Wolves shot 16 of 45 from three. The Clippers shot 11 of 32 from three. If you make more threes than the Clippers, most nights you're going to win. That's it. That's honestly what it is. The Clippers made a pretty valiant comeback in the fourth quarter to make this a game and get this within range before the Wolves turned around and put it away. And that's a big building block for them, is to not collapse and put this away. The starters were fantastic. They got good contributions off of the bench from Jaden McDaniels, who had 18. Taurean Prince was 17. Big game for Taurean Prince. But in general, this Clippers team is so dependent on three-pointers, especially without Paul George. If they're not hitting threes, they do not have the weaponry to keep up even with the Wolves led by Anthony Edwards.
Yeah, Ant was awesome. I'm going to remove every stat from the box score, and I'm going to tell you why the Timberwolves won. Here are the players who came off the bench for the LA Clippers tonight. Wenyen Gabriel, Xavier Moon, Keon Johnson, Amir Coffey, Justice Winslow, the recently added James Ennis, and Jay Scrubb. That is one NBA rotation quality guy, maybe. They just don't have anybody. They don't have anybody available. I'm not going to belittle them for winning. So, yes, credits to the Wolves. They won without Cat and D'Lo, and Ant was awesome. But the story of this game and the story for the Clippers for the next month is going to be that they have a really crappy team right now.
Yeah. No Paul George, no Kawhi Leonard, no Brandon Boston, who's been good for them, no Nicholas Batum, no Zubac, no Isaiah Hartenstein. They just
no Kennard.
Yeah, you're right. Although I will just point out that Amir Coffey you listed in that, and that better have been one of the good players, because anytime that he scores, Clippers play-by-play says, and that's another cup of coffee, and I love it every single time. I just love
he's the one, and Wenyen's my kind of one, Wenyen Gabriel, and Keon Johnson might be something. They picked him in the first round, but everybody else, I'm kind of yeah, that's a guy you put on the court.
Final one. Here's the Nuggets get beat by Dallas. This game actually had some ramifications. It wasn't an exciting game. It wasn't well played. 103-89. Dallas gets the win. I am required to stay on brand and let you know that the Dallas Mavericks clinched tiebreaker over the Denver Nuggets with their win tonight, winning the season series 2-1. They only play 3 times this season. And so the Mavericks get the second win and clinch tiebreaker. That could wind up mattering quite a bit down the stretch, either for playoff seeding or potentially even for the play-in. So as I will always remind people, yes, these games matter even in January. Yes, you need to win them, especially versus teams that you may wind up being close with next down the line in April. Here's the problem with the Nuggets. Jokic does what Jokic does. 27 points, 16 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals. Okay. In the first half, Facu Campazzo didn't take a shot, and Austin Rivers missed 2 of them. Like, that was it. That was the game right there. Will Barton had a bad game. He had a bad game. 4 of 12 from the field, 12 points on 12 shots, 6 assists, 7 turnovers for Barton. He was sloppy. The Nuggets had 25 turnovers to 21 assists. They had 25 turnovers to 31 made buckets. At one point, they had more turnovers than made field goals. Sloppy game. They don't have a backcourt. They really miss Monte Morris. Davon Reed couldn't hit shots tonight. He was 1 of 5. They needed him. He's a call up. Bones Highland was 3 of 9. He was just off of the COVID list and looked like it. 7 points, 6 assists for Bones. Bol actually gave them some good minutes and then didn't play in the second half. Aaron Gordon was great in this game, 15 points on 7 of 9. If you're asking, like, what about the Mavericks? I mean, the Mavericks got contributions from everybody. Luka has 21, but only on 7 of 18 shooting. He has 15 assists, though. Got everybody else involved. Jalen Brunson, solid 13 points, but only on 14 shots. No KP in this game, but I thought Maxi Kleber and Dwight Powell played great defense. Both of them came through, and I thought played really great defense, especially on Jokic. They doubled him, and it really worked out. Reggie Bullock hit some big threes to get separation in the fourth quarter. 15 points on 4 of 8 from 3 for Bullock, who had a tough start to the season, is now shooting well. I don't know what to make of this Dallas team. To me, this says a lot more about the fact that Denver, with all their injuries and all their problems with COVID and everything else, they just don't have the firepower to even keep up with what I think is a pretty flawed Mavericks team.
Yeah, Hardaway, Doncic, and Brunson were 13 for 41, and they still won handily because not a good Nuggets performance. The Mavs are funny right now with their COVID situation because they're paying Marquise Chris 100-something K to just sprint, and it's working. They're getting kind of decent minutes from him, and Kleba and whatever center they decide to use is kind of working. So they got good post minutes tonight. Ironically, I did not expect that. Dwight Powell was pretty good to help the Mavs in this game. And yeah, I can't get a feel on the Nuggets. I mean, I'll defer to you on all Nuggets related things, but I'm not supposed to get a good feel on the Nuggets. Their whole team's been out every game. Their head coach and their second in line for head coach aren't even there, right? It's off. You can't really take anything away from these games necessarily. I mean, guys played bad, and you can be critical and find the right line to analyze a game. But when you're on not your backup head coach, your third head coach, and you don't have, you haven't had Porter for a while, you haven't had Murray all season. Like, I have trouble looking at this game and going, oh, this means something for Denver. And I think that's the case for a lot of NBA teams right now, but more specifically them than others.
Yep. I think Denver was a flawed team that played badly. The Mavericks were a flawed team that played a little bit better. That's the recap
100%.
for Nuggets Mavericks on Monday night. All right. He's Tony East. I'm Matt Moore. Thanks for joining us on Locked On NBA. We'll be back tomorrow with more coverage of the NBA. Make sure to rate, review, subscribe. Give us those 5-star reviews wherever you do so. Spotify, Apple. We're on YouTube. Check out the YouTube channel. Subscribe to the Locked On NBA YouTube channel. And we'll talk to you guys again next time on Locked On NBA.